What's up, everybody? Week 10 is in the books, Brant. The Fatboyz are live coming at you for week 11 on the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network, Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast, live on that YouTube channel. Week 10 was a fun one, Brant. We had some really high scoring performances from guys we don't normally expect, some low scores out of some guys that we do expect. It was one of those prototypical weekends in the NFL where you really just don't know what to expect, Brant.
Yeah, it was a bunch of good games. About, 5 or 6 games came down to the last drive, field goals, and then a Monday night huge upset, and that's you beating me Broncos beating the Bills. And yeah, it was just a tough week all around. I'm pretty sure I actually lost a week to a guy that had Jalen Waddle on bye still in his lineup because I'm pretty sure it was just a rough week all around with fantasy guys that underperformed or in some just overperformed.
Yeah, absolutely. You had like Brian Robinson's a name that comes to mind that just had an explosion of a game. You talk about in the running back position guys that went the opposite direction. ETN was one of the biggest disappointments this week. I know so many people are high on him right now. And we just saw just exactly how good that 49ers defense was indeed this week, Brant. But nonetheless, week 11, we march on. The drum move beats on. We've got to get going here. It's the last week, Brant, before Thanksgiving week, the best holiday in the world for fat people alike. We're marching into it. This is all we got to do is get through this Sunday, and it's Thanksgiving week. We can start preparing, getting our stomachs ready. We've got Thursday games that week. We've got Black Friday games that week. It's going to be just an incredible game. Sundays might be a little slow that week, but I'll be moving slow anyway, much like most of America, Brant. So
there's probably a good chance I'll be eating a ham and egg sandwich on camera, a little leftover from Thanksgiving. I'm not a big turkey eater, but I bet your butt I will have me some ham.
I hear you there. I do a little bit of turkey on Thanksgiving just because it's traditional, but I much prefer the ham as well. You got to slap some like mashed potatoes on top of it in between a roll and just, scarf as much down as you can, Brant.
Yep.
You know what all this food talk reminds me of? Sometimes you got to put a bib on, Brant, and we're going to put our bibs on for this episode.
And let's eat.
Let's eat. All right, Brent, the Fatboyz, much like most of the fantasy football community, start our week 11 looking into the holes that we have on our roster, the guys that we want to pick up off of waiver claims. And so just in traditional and typical fantasy football formats, we're going to start this episode with the waiver claim, Brent. And I really kind of want to go first here because the first guy I want to talk about kind of ties into a guy that you were starting to fade a little bit last week that I wasn't quite sure I was ready to fade. So if you're okay with it, I'm going to start us off this week on the waivers.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
All right. So the first guy I want to talk about, he's already rostered in about 65% of sleeper leagues. So he's picked up in most, but he's still available in quite a healthy dose of leagues, Brant. And it's Leonard Fournette of the Buffalo Bills now. So first of all, let me start this waiver claim by saying I've ran out and picked up Leonard Fournette as soon as the news broke the day that he got signed by the Bills in a lot of leagues that I have deeper benches in. But I'm also not super sure that I buy into Leonard Fournette moving forward. So this is almost, I want you to talk me into this as much as it's just, I think he's the best running back out there. So first of all, here we go. I'm a James Cook believer, Brant. And then we get into Monday Night Football, first play of the game. has the ball stripped away from him, ripped away from him. He looked like a little girl carrying a football there. No offense to all of our female viewers. But he just, a small man in comparison to that defensive back who just ripped that ball away from him. Bad fumble. He got himself in the doghouse. Pretty sure he only had like 1 or 2 more carries that half. Didn't really get back into the game consistently until the second half. And then in that second half, there was another fumble. Now, I watched it live when they showed it live. I'm almost certain you should have pinned that fumble on Josh Allen. They didn't. They pinned it on James Cook.
No, the second one they did pin on him.
Okay, Sleeper still had it.
It's the one that bounces off of his chest.
Yeah.
Rolling that pin. He had 3 total drops, but 2 were pinned on him.
So Sleeper has him for two fumbles, and I didn't think the second one was necessarily, but I digress. So obviously the Buffalo Bills fired Ken Dorsey. They brought in Joe Brady at offensive coordinator, who I really liked a lot coming into the NFL. He didn't necessarily work out in Carolina, but if you remember right, Joe Burrow's offensive coordinator at LSU when they won the Natty title. I'm excited about this Bills offense taking a step forward, Brant. I'm just not so sure that Leonard Fournette is a guy that is going to be worth a roster spot. Does he upseat Latavius Murray in your mind, and does he upseat James Cook?
Man, I don't even know. I honestly have no idea what to do with that backfield. I think James Cook has been the most explosive back there. He did even being in the doghouse. He went for 109 rushes on 12 carries. He looked explosive on most carries. Yeah, he had the 2/3 fumbles. Like I said, the 2 were pinned on him. I do believe the other one was pinned on Josh Allen. That's a rough backfield. Murray's taken away. The drive that Murray scored the touchdown, Cook did all the work to get up there, and then Murray just took it. I don't know, man. This is a backfield. If you got a deep bench, absolutely hold on to it. See what this looks like going forward. We know what the Bills' offense is capable of. It's just all about how is it going to look moving forward.
Okay, so it's a gamble, but again, it's an offense it's good enough offense, Brent, that if you can get potentially Leonard Fournette, who ends up being the goal line back or something, it could be a league-winning type of move. So if he's available in your league, it's probably worth a pickup if you don't have any pressing needs for this coming week. Now, Brant, I don't want to force your hand here. Are you going to talk about your running back on your waiver claim first? All right, then I'm going to go ahead and bring up this question that we have posed to us here. Jumbo says, is Ty Chandler worth a look, Brant?
Ty Chandler is definitely worth a look. Alexander Madison's already still in concussion protocol. There's only been 1 player since the NFL put in the full protocol to be cleared within a week. There's only been 1 time has somebody been cleared within 1 week of concussion protocol since they put all the steps into effect. Ty Chandler is about the only other back on there. I think Kane Nguenu will end up being activated, but he's always been the return man. CJ Ham is nothing but a fullback. If Madison misses, Ty Chandler is going to get a huge workload. And if he does something worth that workload, we've seen how much the Vikings like to use the running back by committee. This guy could end up being a flex play the rest of the year if he shows out. And he's going against Denver, who just gave up. We just hit on this. Just gave up 109 yards on 12 carries to James Cook. I absolutely think Ty Chandler should be the number 1 running back to be picked up. And especially if you're a Madison owner or if you're going against the Madison owner, this is a block that you need to be in effect. 15% of sleeper leagues is he owned in. So absolutely, this guy is worth a huge pickup in my mind.
I imagine Ty Chandler will probably be one of the highest waiver claims of the week this week. So if you have a priority waiver, you should definitely be putting it in on him. Fab budget, you're probably spending a healthy portion of what's left on him just because of what his potential role could be with the rest of the season, especially if he comes out and has a good first week, Brant. So I absolutely love Ty Chandler this week. I know I've been the biggest Alexander Madison fan out of the 2 of us, but Chandler definitely looked pretty fresh, pretty explosive this week. So I'd be okay with Ty Chandler there as well. Speaking of looking really good this week, one of my absolute favorite wide receivers, to talk about here is a guy that I got to watch very closely this week, Brant, in the contest where my Atlanta Falcons, played their Super Bowl against the Arizona Cardinals and got whooped on. in Kyler Murray's debut. 3 quarterbacks making their NFL debuts this season, beat the Atlanta Falcons 3 weeks in a row. So it's really, things are going great for us right now. There's no turmoil. The whole house is on fire around me. I'm just sitting here sipping my tea saying it's fine. I'm fine, right? But anyway, Rondale Moore, Brant, is one of my favorite wide receiver ads right now. This guy's had a 60% target share, or 60% snap share in all but one game this season. That happened all the way back in like week 2 or week 3. He was slightly under 60%. The thing that really caught my eye is everybody's going off this week about McBride's the guy to own in Atlanta at this point. And that's not untrue. Trey McBride led the team in targets with 9 total targets. But do you know who was second in targets on that Arizona Cardinals roster this week, Brant?
I guess it'd be Rondale Moore. We saw how explosive 2 years ago, how he can be with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, this week he had 8 targets in Kyler's debut, leading all wide receivers. Michael Wilson was the next closest with 2 total targets. I love Rondale Moore moving forward. I think Kyler Murray is the type of quarterback that he's going to, make plays happen when he makes guys miss in the backfield, extends plays back there, and a shifty, quick wide receiver like Rondale Moore may just be the type of wide receiver to take the top off of defenses and really build that strong connection with Kyler. So I'm really excited about Rondale Moore moving forward. Again, rostered in about 58% of sleeper leagues currently, Brant. So there's some wiggle room there with him as well.
Okay. I'm one of my favorite wide receivers you could probably get after waivers clear if he's still on it, because he is on a bye this week. If I'm not mistaken. Yes, he is on a bye week this week, coming back from Germany, and that is Demario Douglas. I had to scroll back up to make sure I don't mess that up. He had 9 targets last week, and the next closest to him was 5 in Hunter Henry. I know that offense doesn't look too good. Well, they're going into the bye week. Belichick's going to get it looked at. It depends on who the quarterback is. But since he missed the game in Las Vegas, he has come back to see 6, 7, 7, and 9 targets, catching 4, 5, 5, 6 over the last few weeks. Finishing in those 4 weeks, wide receiver 58 is his lowest. His next lowest is wide receiver 31 in a flex in a 3 wide receiver or a flex. This is a great start. He's played over. He went from 41% of snaps was his highest prior to Vegas to 62, 77, 83, 72. He's on the field quite a bit for him now. He's the number 1 guy. I know they're banged up all over the receiving core. Juju definitely did not look like the guy as much as I needed him to be this week because I was forced to start him. But this Douglas is a guy that's going to get out there, and I watched a little bit of that game while we were live, and he definitely looks a little more explosive. And he's a rookie, so just getting into his own. We normally see rookies really start to take off after their bye week, so this could be a guy that you could be talking about getting into the top 20. Top 25 wide receivers.
Yeah, and that's well said too, Brant, because a lot of people were expecting Kayshon Boutte to have some kind of a role as the rookie wide receiver going into New England this offseason. Regardless of his offseason issues, he was pretty highly touted, and it's been Demario Douglas. But Demario Douglas has been the guy, especially in the absence of Kendrick Bourne. It looks like he's going to be the one to step up, and moving forward, it looks like he's going to be one of the guys to own there in New England. So, and bad fantasy offense or bad NFL offenses can still create fantasy value. So I definitely think that Demario Douglas is worth a stash if he's available in your leagues, or if he's a guy that you could go out and scoop and potentially have sitting on your bench after this week. So I'm all for that, Brant. Now, waiver claims done and over with. I'm going to get into some burning questions here, Brant. I kind of told you we were going to do this today. I've given you no insight as to what these questions are going to be. I want your genuine, off the cusp, as a football fan, as a fantasy fan, answers to these questions, because I just think they're darn worth it. So I'm going to start us off with a 2-part question, Brant. This is about the Minnesota Vikings. All right. So Josh Dobbs has come in. He's 2-0. First week, he didn't have any time to practice with his teammates. Second week, he didn't even know how to get to the damn locker room. Okay. So it's been an experience, right? So he's just now starting to get into it. Does Josh Dobbs keep the Minnesota Vikings skill position players fantasy relevant all season? I'm talking TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson when he returns, KJ Osborne when he returns, Jordan Addison, and then whoever the focal point in the backfield is. Is he good enough to do so?
Relevant, yes. Explosive, I don't think so. I think he spreads the ball out really well, especially when he gets Jefferson back. I don't think he'll force feed him the ball. I really think he spreads the ball out quite a bit over the rest of the season, and I think he keeps them playoff relevant in the NFL. And I think he keeps winning games. And as for seeing explosive plays, you're only going to see it when the receiver makes it, such as Addison ripping the ball away from the defender saying, that's my ball, I'm taking it to the house with me. Or when Justin Jefferson comes off and runs a five-yard slant and ends up running it to the house. I think that's where you see the explosion come. I don't think, unless that play happens in a game, I don't think you see that from Josh Dobbs' arm. I think it's all on the legs of the wide receivers and the tight end.
Okay. So then here's the second part of this question, still focused on the Minnesota Vikings, because I know a lot of people are excited to get him back. He just tweeted that he can't wait to get out and join this team. Justin Jefferson, when he comes back, Brant, does he still have wide receiver 1 overall upside? Or is this a wide receiver that we've now seen the emergence of Jordan Addison? Are you slightly less excited about Justin Jefferson week in and week out than what you were previously?
No, I think you still have to tout him as a wide receiver 1. I think
No, I'm talking the number 1.
Oh,
Is
no,
he the number 1?
I don't think he's the number 1 anymore. I don't. Jamar Chase could be in that talk. You still got to think about Cooper Kupp. I know it's been a down year for him. I just don't think I could put him as the number 1. Addison has done so well without him. A.J. Brown starting to really take off too, even with Smith. So, no, I don't put him as the 1 right now. He is still there in my top 5. I think he's explosive enough to stay inside that top 5. But I'd really have to dive deep. I don't think I consider him the number 1 right now.
Okay, fair enough. I too think Jordan Addison will steal a little bit of work from him just because Addison is really started to come on and you know, the Vikings have looked good without Justin Jefferson. So I know they're going to look better when he gets back. But I think Addison's carved out a role for himself that I think the OC and head coach there in Minnesota would just be silly to ignore. Stefanski can't let that happen. So, all right, here's another one for you. Moving in to another offense that should be pretty good, but hasn't been so far this year. Like I said, the Bills offense last night didn't look good. Turnover central, but they fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey because that's why they had all the turnovers, was because Ken Dorsey was calling the plays. But they did bring in Joe Brady, who I said, Brant. So there's 2 guys right now that have really separated themselves as focal points of this offense. One of them we've known about for a long time. The other one's really coming in the last several weeks. The pass catcher you'd rather own rest of season in Buffalo, is it Dalton Kincaid or is it Stephon Diggs? Now, before you answer that, I know it should be Stephon Diggs, right? It screams Stephon Diggs. They've both had 24 total targets the last 3 weeks. They're on pace. Kincaid has had targets of 6, 11, and 7, whereas Diggs has had 5, 7, and 12. So actually, if you look at the last 2 weeks, it's been a five more targets for Kincaid than Diggs. Over that stretch, fantasy point wise, Dalton Kincaid has outscored him by 4 fantasy points, Brant. So is it a complete overreaction to say that Diggs is slowly declining and he's the guy you'd rather own? Or is it the fresh meat in Dalton Kincaid that you want, in your fantasy lineup?
This is for rest of season, you said?
Yes.
I think I'm going to stick with Diggs. I think we see this offense get opened back up. I really do think Diggs is the focal point. They have no wide receiver 2 really explode open. As much as I would say I would love Kincaid because the tight end situation is so difficult, I think I still would rather have Diggs in my lineup. I think he has the more explosive ability, and I think the new OC is going to lean on probably the best weapon in his offense.
Yeah, I do think the first couple of weeks that you will see Diggs hyper targeted with Joe Brady, just because he's going to want to try to get points on the board quick. Look what I can do, kind of a thing. Get some confidence reestablished in Josh Allen, and I think you do that through short intermediary routes to Diggs that lets Diggs use his athletic ability to make plays. But I also think you do that through quick passes and safe passes to Dalton Kincaid, who's been pretty sure-handed here as of late. So I think, honestly, I'm not saying I'm out on Diggs. I just think I'm so high on Kincaid. I think this could be a coin flip for me. And kind of like you said, Brant, with the transparency issues at the tight end position versus how many wide receivers there are that are flexing and balling out this year as a whole. I think I'd almost rather take the consistency at the tight end position. He's been tight end 7, 8, and 8 in those 3 weeks. So you're getting top tight end numbers every week. Whereas this last week, you get an under 10-point game from Diggs. It's just tough to live with that as your guy. But I could totally appreciate and understand the argument either way. All right. Last question for you is another who would you rather own rest of season? What Steelers running back do you want to have, Brant? This past week, we'll start with Najee Harris. Najee had 16 carries, 82 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 17 yards receiving. Jaylen Warren went over the 100-yard mark for the first time ever. 15 carries, 102 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. Also had 4 targets, only 2 receptions and 9 yards. Which Steelers running back do you prefer, Brant?
And with that coming out, naming Jaylen Warren as the starter. So what's he going to do? See 2% more snaps because they have been almost in a 50-50 split almost perfectly the last couple of weeks. I still think I'd still take Najee. Najee is explosive. I know it's been a little rough this year for him, but I still think I like Najee moving forward. I still think he'll be the goal line back moving forward. So I think he gets the touchdowns. That offense is starting to kind of figure it out, even though their defense is doing just fine, winning games for them. But I think it's going to be Najee Harris the rest of the year.
Okay. I'm kind of on board with that same sentiment, Brant. I think, Jaylen Warren has certainly captivated folks' audiences and eyes because he gets out and makes these flashy plays, but he does it on 7 carries when the defense isn't expecting him to run between the tackles, which is what's going on with Najee because Matt Canada has no creativity whatsoever in his offense.
Right.
But like you alluded to, and the one big thing for me is this Pittsburgh Steelers offense doesn't score the ball all that often. When they do, it's the goal line situations, and Najee is going to be the back that's in that goal line offense. So for the same reasons you said, I'm leaning Najee as well.
Yeah.
All right, Brant, that kind of wraps up the burning questions I had. So we've got waivers done. We've got burning questions. We have a darn good Thursday night contest coming at us this week, Brant.
We do. Before we jump into that contest, I want to talk about something that some people have been talking about over the last couple of weeks. That's Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Over the last few weeks, Zach Charbonnet has outsnapped Kenneth Walker, although Kenneth Walker has outtouched him. So I am saying this, and I'm going to say this now. I think Zach Charbonnet is a flex start for the rest of the year. I think Kenneth Walker is going to be an RB1. The rest are top 15 RB the rest of the year. Zach Charbonnet is on the field during all passing downs. He's our blocker, and he's catching all the passes. Yes, I understand. Kenneth Walker caught the pass, went 69 yards to the house, touchdown. But I believe, I'm double checking right now, that was his only catch in that game.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So Zach Charbonnet, as long as we keep games close, Zach Charbonnet will be valuable in games. 59, 55, 52% of snaps last 3 weeks. He's finished his RB32, RB56, and RB28. I think you start talking about Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker both being startable rest of the season. What do you think about that?
Well, I think Kenneth Walker outtouched him by 9 touches, and I understand there's a thing to me. I look at this as a similar situation as what you've got in Kansas City almost. Jerick McKinnon is explosive. He's primarily out there in pass catching downs, but I'm not starting him over Isaiah Pacheco. Kenneth Walker getting 19 touches or carries to go along with 2 targets. And look what he does when he gets out in space, Brant. I understand Charbonnet is getting plenty of work in the passing game, but I'd much rather have Kenneth Walker because volume is king ultimately. And if I'm starting a guy between the two of them and I've got Kenneth Walker, who, unless the Seahawks get completely blown out, which doesn't happen very often, I do want to say that Ravens game was an outlier. That's not a traditional thing that we're going to see happen with your Seahawks. The defense is too darn good for that. Even if I still don't trust Geno, even though he got me the win over you in fantasy this week.
I had him on my bench in our super flex.
I just think that there's too good of a chance for Kenneth Walker to go out, find the end zone, have plenty of touches, have plenty of carries, and I don't expect Charbonnet to fall into the end zone. I know we're going to see it at some point. I just don't think it's going to be when anybody expects it. And because Walker's been that guy and done that so many times over for the fantasy season, I'm going with a guy who's going to get me more opportunity. Now, if this starts to go and you start seeing 10 carries for Walker and 10 carries for Charbonnet, and Charbonnet's still out for all the passing downs, yeah, then maybe I change my tune a little bit. But while Kenneth Walker's out carrying him by 13 carries, give me the guy getting the carries, Brant.
Okay.
All right, now let's get into this Thursday night contest. Should be a very good game. I know there's some injuries to talk about here, but we have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling up to Baltimore, where you just were a few weeks ago, Brant, to the hosting Ravens in a divisional showdown. Vegas has got the Raiders favored by 3.5 points. 46 is the current line over under. Should be a very, very fun contest. Those NFC North games are always nasty, just win in the trenches kind of a game. You've got the Ravens who are running the ball like crazy right now against the Bengals, who have Joe Burrow looking like his old self again, Brant. What do you make of this contest on Thursday night?
Defensive battle. I'm taking the under in this game, and I'm taking it very comfortably. I think this is, like you said, win in the trenches, ground and pound this ball, especially if T. Higgins misses it and Jamar Chase is still banged up. If you still have the injuries on the that side of the ball, I really am going to expect this game to go well under. I expect this to be a pound the ball, keep the ball out of Joe Burrow's hand, keep the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hand. But I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think this is a Keaton Mitchell week, and here's why. Short week. The man only saw, I think it was 4 total touches. I think they're saving him to use him for this short week. So I expect this to really be a Keaton Mitchell week. I honestly would consider starting him after talking about some other options. I'm going to look over that. I own him in 4 or 5 leagues. I definitely will be looking at my running backs, but I do think this is going to be a Keaton Mitchell week just because of how explosive he is when he gets the ball, and it's a short week, so he gives you that opportunity to rest Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. He's already passed Justice Hill on the depth chart, so it gives you a chance to really relax Gus Edwards. He will never be the goal line back. I will never say that he will outdo Gus Edwards on the goal line, but I definitely could see him out-touching him and outperforming him in between the 20s.
You said you'd take the under comfortably on this. I want to hear your thoughts on this a little bit deeper, because the Ravens did just host the Cleveland Browns in a divisional matchup with, statistically speaking, 2 of the best defenses in the NFL, and they combined for 64 points, Brant. So what about this contest makes you think for sure it's going to stay under the under?
Short week. These 2 teams always play each other really, really tight. I expect it to be, once again, a really tight game. I don't expect to see the explosive plays that we normally see. And that game last week, in my mind, the way that the Ravens have been playing defense, I think last week was almost a fluke, and I don't see that happening again. So I do expect this game to be well under. The defensive, like I said, the defensive battle has been amazing between these guys. I guess in September last year, they did go for 50, 51. But I still expect this to be a defensive battle and win in the trenches, run the ball, keep it out of each other's hands. Short week. I expect the running backs to see a lot.
All right. We talked about it Sunday on the live cast. We cursed it. We both kind of said that we didn't think that the CMC touchdown streak was going to end. However, there is a new impressive streak in the NFL, Brant. Odell Beckham Jr. has had touchdown catches in back-to-back games for the Baltimore Ravens. Does he make it 3 games in a row and score against the Cincinnati Bengals?
He wouldn't have had his first one if they didn't force the ball to him 3 times. I literally was sitting in that corner of the end zone watching that ball get forced to him. No, I don't think he does. Like I said, I think if I had to guess, I'm saying the running backs are scoring all the points in this game.
Okay. All right. There you have it. Thursday night, at the very least, should be better than Bears-Panthers that we had last week. This should be a much more appeasing fantasy games. I don't see any reason to sit anybody in this contest. If Jamar Chase plays, you play him. If Tyler Boyd's your guy, you play him. I don't see any reason to sit anybody this week on either side of the ball. Should be a fun contest. And let's call it what it is, Brant. A lot of people's fantasy matchups are going to be won Thursday night. So be ready for that, folks. Monday. Take those out of your lineups. Take those players or out of your flex spots. Get them into your RB spots. Get them into your wide receiver spots. Get them locked in, or you can make waiver or roster changes the rest of the week. So, Brant, I think that's about all I got this week. You got anything else?
That's all I got. Let's get ready for some football. Let's get ready for Thanksgiving coming up. And as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.